Welcome everyone, and thanks for attending this Office 365 Con focus session sponsored by Altaro. Altaro is a fast-growing developer of robust backup solutions for more than 50,000 customers, 10,000 partners, and 2,000 MSPs in over 121 countries worldwide, with offices in the US, the UK, Germany, France, North Macedonia, and Malta. Altaro is committed to providing affordable enterprise-class functionality while avoiding unnecessary features that add cost and undue complexity. We encourage you to use the questions panel during today's presentation to submit any questions or comments you may have. Any questions that our speakers are not able to address before we conclude will be shared with them for follow-up with you by email. Simon Perriman is an internationally recognized Microsoft expert, business leader, author, keynote presenter, and technology personality, whose content is viewed by millions of IT pros each year. During 8 years at Microsoft, he supported multiple teams, including engineering, evangelism, technical marketing, and product planning. Simon is president and chief architect for FanWide and a technical consultant for Altaro. Well, thanks for joining us today, Simon, and welcome to Tektronix Office 365 Con.
Thank you. Great to be here, and welcome everybody. And today, we're going to take a look at some of the challenges that come with Office 365 Backup. Namely, Microsoft doesn't have any type of native backup support. The end user, you, are responsible for backing up and recovering all of your Office 365 files and documents. That surprises a lot of people. So today, we're also going to be looking at some of the best practices which you can take to do this yourself, from centralized management and reporting, flexible recovery, allowing you to restore locally or into different locations, as well as different ways and methods that you can take to avoid any unexpected costs. We're then going to take a quick look at Altaro Office 365 Backup solution, see how it enables many of these capabilities, a quick demo, and then we'll have some Q&A. First, let's take a look at some of the challenges which come with Office 365. Now, this again really surprises people, but Microsoft does not actually protect or recover your own data. Now, whenever you log online to one of these cloud services, whether that's your Exchange mailbox online, SharePoint, OneDrive, or even Microsoft Teams, you always get access to a copy of your data. And people believe that that means it's backed up. That's not quite true. What happens is Microsoft retains one authoritative copy of your data, which is the live version that you would see whenever you log into an inbox. And with that, that's basically the copy that you get. So if that version ever gets corrupted, deleted, attacked, locked down, or anything like that, that's the only copy of your data which you have up and running. Now, this is a big challenge for a lot of people because everybody thinks this is protected, and it turns out you're really not. So fundamentally, what customers are responsible for doing is securing all of their data, making sure that they maintain compliance for it. And this comes with tracking a lot of different things, from making sure that you handle the data classification, that you manage the users and access, that you handle all of the security for this backup, and centrally manage all of these components. Now, the key thing to look at is if you take a look at Microsoft's own service statement, which you can see from their online services agreement, they very clearly tell you, Section 6B, we recommend that you regularly back up your content and data that you store on these services or store using third-party apps and services. So again, a misconception, but really important. If you're an enterprise, you have sensitive content or information, you're handling all of this yourself. Now, fundamentally, if that single version that you have running up in the cloud gets corrupted, gets lost, gets damaged, whether that's accidental or deliberate, there's even a chance that, a large cloud provider like Microsoft could have a catastrophic disaster and lose their data yourself. So you really want to make sure that you're protected. Now, beyond this traditional, loss of access, data corruption, you also want to think about what happens if there's an outage and you can't access this Azure cloud service. What happens if there's disruption in the network service that could last a couple of days and your users cannot even connect to the Office 365 service? Then they're not going to have access to many of their files or backups unless they have a local copy. So one of the great things about when you take an Office 365 backup is you're going to have the ability to restore it locally as well. So this means that even if your end users aren't able to connect to Office 365 online, you can still download and give them a copy of your data from your backup repository. So this allows you to really handle those short-term outages or even a prolonged outage where the service can be offline for an extended period of time. But probably one of the most important reasons why you really want to think about this Office 365 backup solution is handling ransomware. As you may know, this has become prevalent in the industry. And essentially, ransomware is a malicious piece of software that people accidentally download or install, and it fundamentally locks up all of your files. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is even Office 365 that runs up in the public cloud, even that can get attacked by ransomware. And even if your files and your outbox is stored in O365, it can still get encrypted and locked up. In fact, here's a screenshot that we have from one of our O365 test accounts, where you can see we've deliberately exposed it to ransomware, and it actually encrypts your entire online mailbox. Now, Microsoft can't do anything about this because Microsoft doesn't have backups. Again, that single copy that you have run up in the cloud is now inaccessible unless you pay a bounty. Now, there are a couple ways that you can recover from this. The very first time you deploy an inbox, there's usually one copy that's taken. But if you're going to be rolling back in time, you might be rolling back in time 3, 6 months, a year or two, which fundamentally means you've lost access to your data. So again, we want to emphasize this. There's a lot of reasons why that single copy of your information and your files in Office 365 can get hacked, corrupted, infected, or lost. So you really want to make sure you're staying ahead of the game. If Office 365 and its data is critical to your organization, make sure that you have a reliable backup solution. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the best practices, which we also offer here. Now, the best thing is you're going to really want to find a way to have centralized management and reporting. Now, if you're in a small organization with, a couple of people, probably less important because you can enforce each individual, making sure that they're taking local backups of their mailbox and their files. But if you're a larger organization, even if you're a managed service provider, it's really important to have everything in a single location. This way, as soon as new users join the environment, they can automatically be protected. You could see who's completed their backups or who's no longer in compliance. You could centrally manage all of the policies, so backups are consistent. They happen every day at fixed periods of time. It's also going to be important to share this information with other stakeholders in your organization. So being able to even view a centralized report to show the global compliance, that's going to be valuable too. Now, whenever you're taking a copy of this backup information, always make sure that it's secure as well. So think about copying large amounts of inboxes, files, folders, other valuable assets. That can take up a lot of storage capacity. So wherever you put it, make sure that you do have enough capacity, make sure that it's expansible and can grow, and make sure that that storage that you're using is, of course, secure, because you want to make sure that you're protecting your backups. Now, wherever you end up placing this backup copy of your data, make sure that it can be accessed remotely. You don't want to go and put it on a single server in your data center in the event that if that data center is inaccessible, so are your backups. So a good thing that a lot of people recommend is the 3-2-1 backup rule. Always have 3 copies of your data. Always store them in at least 2 different locations. And we recommend having one stored up in the cloud so that it's always going to be available no matter where you're located. And then the final best tip here, when you have this larger organization, make sure that you follow compliance best practices. Regularly auditing who has access, making sure people are taking the backups and they're not doing anything different with them. So you want to continue following the best practices that you've instilled throughout your enterprise. Now, once you got your backups up and running, you really want to think about what could happen and cause a disaster, and then how might I need to recover in these different scenarios. Now, the easiest disaster solution is, somebody accidentally deletes their inbox, we recover it from a backup. That's not really a problem, but what happens if they just need to recover a specific file? If you're trying to go and restore an entire inbox, you could potentially overwrite some newer data, or you've got to go create a second dummy account, restore the backup to this dummy account, and then copy the files over from there. So if you are working with a sophisticated backup vendor, a really important feature you want to look for is being able to do item level recovery, ILR. And what this basically means is you can peek inside that backup file without having to completely deploy it. And within that, you can select individual files or messages or items to recover. So you don't have to go and recover that 10 gigabyte inbox if you just need to recover a 1 megabyte email. So a great feature, something important you always want to make sure that you have. Another recommendation we have is making sure that you can recover to different points in time. Now, often when you first deploy or migrate an app into Office 365, you are going to do an initial backup. You'll have your on-site version at the time of deployment, and you can always recover to that. But again, rolling back, a couple of months means you're probably going to lose some data. That's not ideal. So you want to try to have a backup solution that's going to allow you to take incremental backups at different points in time so that you can recover to those different points in time as well. So think about doing it multiple times a day or once a week, multiple times a week. Whatever is important for you in your backup options, you want to think about how you're going to minimize your recovery time, your RTO, how you're going to minimize your recovery point objective, your RPO, and basically you want to recover as much data as possible. Now, another important scenario a lot of people think about is, what happens if I don't have access to that original inbox? We always recommend finding a solution that allows you to recover to a different location. Now, a couple reasons for this. One is that user who you need to recover the data for might no longer be with your organization. They could have left, but they could have been somebody who had important files that you need to retain as their valuable company property. So you can even, with a sophisticated solution, you can even go and recover to a completely different location, to an administrator's inbox, to some type of dummy account. So this is going to give you a lot of flexibility. And then finally, think about the scenario we touched on already, the offline recovery. What happens if there's an extended outage? What happens if a particular user cannot go and connect to this one particular service? Well, we always want to make sure that you can do an offline recovery as well, where you can go and download or replicate a copy of your backup files, and then go and install them locally. Run them from a laptop. If you're recovering from Exchange Online, you want to be able to download the PST file, which is the Exchange, the Outlook file, and install that on a local laptop so you can view all of that information. So this is critical. Now, keep in mind, if somebody can't access Office 365, that doesn't necessarily mean they won't have access to the backup location. Keep in mind that something like Azure, one of these massive cloud services, are highly distributed in many locations. So just because the Office 365 or SharePoint service is offline doesn't mean that your user's not going to be able to use other services or that they won't be able to recover this backup. Now, our next category of best practices is making sure that you avoid any unexpected costs. You, of course, want to make sure that you're not paying for services that you didn't expect to use or that you don't need. Now, as you probably know, living in the cloud era, everything's based on consumption billing. You pay for what you use. And this is great unless you start paying for things you didn't realize you were using. So I'll give you an important example now. So within Office 365, you're going to be backing up you want to back up all of the data, right? Now, Office 365 does include one type of very basic backup functionality for some of its different services. And this is what's called a retention policy, where you can retain a file, you can archive it. But all that's doing is it's keeping that file for a specific amount of time, and then after that amount of time, it's automatically deleting it. Now, basically, this is not really designed for backup. This is designed for compliance. This is a really important distinction. What's happening here is a lot of industries are regulated. They say that you have to retain a copy of all of your invoices or your medical records or your legal documents for a 3-year period, and then you must delete them after a 5-year period. And so usually they kind of have this sweet spot. So Office 365 does support this. They do allow you to retain some data for a fixed period of time, and then they allow you to automatically delete it afterwards. But again, this isn't the same as backup. This doesn't give you granularity, doesn't give you flexibility. It just makes sure that you're meeting your legal obligations. But more importantly, what a lot of people don't realize is all of this is set to a maximum of 10 gigabytes per user. And this is shared across all of their Office 365 services. So if they're using SharePoint and OneDrive, and they're sending files in Microsoft Teams, and they have an inbox, any files that are deleted across all of these services are going to get put in this preservation hold library, this file folder that's maxed at 10 gigabytes. If you go over that 10 gigabytes, you start to pay a bill. And this really throws off a lot of people because their users think that they are actually deleting these files, but instead these files are put in essentially a massive recycle bin and then kept there potentially for up to several years. And if that user deletes too many files, or they're doing cleanup because they're almost at capacity, they're probably going to assume that those files are gone forever. They probably don't realize that they're going to start turning that clock on and start billing you money for every single gigabyte, every single month that they store. So really important when you're thinking about the overall total cost of ownership from Office 365, you're aware that there is a cost to just these old files and backing them up. And that's really another advantage of using a solution that's designed for O365 is you're not going to be stuck with this 10 gigabyte limit. When a user leaves the environment for good, you can take a backup and you don't need to keep their Office 365 account active. You don't need to worry about ever restoring to them. Just take that one copy, delete that user, don't ever have to worry about any of these other documents. And for the preservation hold library, just turn that off. Since we're taking regular backups, we don't need the users to be, automatically storing things in this file server that they don't know about, unless, of course, you do have a compliant reason, you are working in a regulated industry, in which case, good to have that on. But again, that preservation hold library is never going to be a substitute for a good backup. Now, across these best practices, I wanted to introduce one of the solutions which is really going to allow you to nail all of these. Really going to give you the best backup solution, the most compliance, and give you streamlined recovery options. And this comes from Altaro Backup for Office 365. Now, what Altaro does is it provides a web-based console that allows you to centrally manage and back up your critical Office 365 services, but more importantly, the data which is running in them. So for Exchange Online, we're going to be able to back up your mailboxes, including all the emails, attachments, your calendars, and all of your contacts. With SharePoint, we're going to be able to back up and recover files and folders within any of your SharePoint sites or your team sites. With OneDrive for Business, we back up and recover all the files and folders. And for Microsoft Teams, we're able to back up and protect all of the content that's sent in the Teams channel that's actually stored in SharePoint and all of the shared files that come from any of the chats. So this is really a unified solution, giving you that backup capability for the critical services that you need. Now, the way Altaro works is they really offload all of the burden, make this a very simple, easy to set up and use solution, because you don't even have to worry about where you're storing that data. If you subscribe to the Office 365 backup solution, all of your data is automatically backed up 4 times per day. It's approximately every 6 hours. This means that you're going to minimize the data loss. This means that as new users come to the environment, it's very easy to add them into this protection plan. And all of this data is stored in Altaro's own Microsoft Azure storage. They handle all of the costs. They handle all of the billing. And so what this means is you don't have to worry about where your backups are. They actually provide up to 50 gigabytes of storage per user, which is 5 times larger than what Office 365 does. So essentially, you don't really have to worry about managing any of the storage, where it runs, how it's protected. And of course, since it's running up in a public cloud, it's going to be accessible from everywhere. So even if your users don't have access to the original Office 365 service, they're still able to download a backup from Altaro's cloud and install it locally. Everything is fully encrypted. It uses Microsoft's built-in security running up in Azure. There's even a centralized audit log, so you can see who's interacting. You can see a screenshot of that over on the right. And Altaro offers 24/7 support. So if there is a critical outage in your data center, you know that you're going to be able to get your files downloaded from anywhere to anyone and get back online as quickly as possible. Probably one of the strongest tools is using the centralized backup management console. This is a simple web console that you can connect to through any browser, and it's going to give you enterprise-wide insights into the retention policies, the coverage, and how your entire organization is doing when it comes up to the health and sustainability of their Office 365 backups. In fact, you can even manage multiple organizations through a single console. So Altaro has a version that's designed for managed service providers, MSPs, who want to go and manage all of the Office 365 components and backups for their own tenants. All of this is searchable and browsable, so you can go and filter, and you can even get to that item level recovery. So you can peek inside inboxes, peek inside backups with access to very specific recovery information, which you're looking for. So not only can we centralize the management and administration, but we really optimize with being able to identify files, figuring out the best backup to recover from, or figuring out which backup contains very specific content. You're also going to want to be able to quickly recover your data. When you're using Altaro, one of the best things is you can recover it locally, recover it from the cloud. You have a lot of flexibility. When you're thinking about the restore, you can also restore that entire inbox or just the specific item. You can browse through any of the latest backup versions you have, which again are taken about 4 times a day, and pick the best one for you. When you're recovering, you have the ability to recover to your current mailbox. You can go and recover to an alternate mailbox. So this could be an example when a user's left the organization, you need to retain some of their files. You can download a zip file, or you can download a PST file. And again, with these 2 later options, this allows you to install files locally that you've downloaded, or allows you to install your Outlook file locally so that you can go access all of your mail. So this gives you really the flexible recovery options that you're going to need to get back online as quick as possible. Now, I'm going to go ahead and flip over to a demo, and we'll give a quick preview of Altaro Office 365 in action. I've now logged in to the Office 365 Management Console. You can see this is a web-based console, and through here, I have quick navigation access to all of the critical components of my interface. First, we start with the Altaro dashboard. This provides me with a centralized view across the entire organization. It's going to show me any active operations. It's going to show me when any users have restored their backups. And it's also going to show me the health status. We can see here that I'm doing pretty well because all of my mailboxes, my OneDrive, and my SharePoint accounts are all green, showing it's healthy. The next thing that I'm able to do is actually add multiple Office 365 organizations if I wanted to. You can see that I've set up the first organization, but I can go ahead and browse additional organizations to go and add. Let's go back and take a look at my original organization. Now from here, I have the ability to go and turn on automatic backups for new users who join. This is going to be incredibly useful for me, and we want to turn this on by default. We can also automatically back up any new SharePoint document libraries. So as organizations build up their SharePoint site, it's going to give us access. We can then get visibility into the health of the backups. What's been backed up, what hasn't been backed up, where backups have been disabled, or which services haven't even been configured for backup. We can even go and delete, change, edit any of these settings. So next, let's go and actually take a look at some of the backups that we've built. First, we'll take a look at the mailbox in OneDrive. And you can see here that we have a tree view that allows me to filter by organization. We'll stay within a marketing demo organization. From here, you can see I have a variety of different users, about 17 or so, who have been added, and all of their services have automatically been backed up, their mailboxes and their OneDrive. And we have a variety of bulk management features that allow me to do an operation at scale across multiple individuals, whether that's starting backups, enabling, disabling, or removing those users. Next, we could go ahead and take a look at backups that we've made for SharePoint. Here you can see my different SharePoint sites have been protected. We get additional information from each of them, taking backups, restoring them, granular discovery, granular restore. We can go and add new SharePoint sites. And again, we can go and bulk manage the environment. So think of this as a critical service that you're going to need, certainly if you're a mid to larger size organization. Now, let's say that we've had an issue and I want to go ahead and actually restore one of these items. Well, what we're able to do is go through this simple wizard. We could say, I want to go and restore a mailbox. It's going to ask me which mailbox. In this case, I'm going to go and select my administrators one. It's going to go and take a look at all the previous versions that it's taken. And from here, you can see that we can browse, and it's almost every 6 hours we have a backup. Now, one of the other great things about Altaro is, so long as you maintain your subscription, they're going to keep your backups indefinitely. So you can really roll back as long as you need. From here, I'm going to restore either everything to my mailbox, to a different mailbox, or go and download those files offline. In this case, let me go ahead and we will restore all of these items to the same mailbox. We're going to confirm the information and click restore. Now, this process is extremely quick, extremely fast, and as you saw, very easy to go about. Just a simple 6-step process, selecting the data and recovering it. If we take a look at recovery for OneDrive and for SharePoint, pretty similar workflow. You're going to select the organization, select the users, or in the case of SharePoint, we're going to select the organization, and we can go and select the SharePoint site that we want to recover. We follow the same simple steps, picking the version, picking how we restore, whether we download it, confirm the information, and that simply, I've gone ahead and restored a mailbox and an entire SharePoint site. But many people might just want that single document. So let's take a quick look at the granular restore as well. It follows a similar process where we'll go and select the marketing demo. And it's then going to ask me, what do you actually want to restore from here? So let's go ahead and we'll pick our mailbox. We'll scroll down, select our user. And it's actually going to go and give me an embedded view of that mailbox. So this is that item level recovery where if I just want to pick an individual file or files, I just select those. And I just go and restore them to my original location. And those are going to appear in my original inbox. So again, this gives us the granularity to go and do a proper restore, get my files back, but without having to reinstall that entire inbox, which could be several gigabytes of data. Very simple, very easy to use. Now, final thing that we'll take a quick look at here is the usage overview. This is a great way to get insight into the consumption across the environment. You can see by month, you have different ways to filter and changes, but fundamentally you get that single view across the entire organization. You can also manage your subscriptions or your invoices. A lot of administrators will also want to go and configure alerts. By configuring alerts, you're going to be able to get email notifications when a problem happens. This could be either something good like a restore was successful, or that a backup failed, or that there were errors and warnings. So essentially, you just go and connect this to an Office 365 email account, and anytime any of these triggers get hit, you'll get an alert in real time. And then, of course, you have audit capability. If you're working in a regulated industry, this is going to be very useful for you to understand in your organization who's been accessing what resources, when they've done it, and what operations they have taken. Hopefully you can see that Office 365 is an incredibly useful service, but there are limitations, particularly when it comes to backup. Altaro is going to give you the tools which you need to really be able to protect this entire environment and all of your critical services, files, and data. With that, we want to thank you for joining the presentation, but we do want to open it up to Q&A before you leave. Are there any questions which have come in?
Yes, we do have some questions, and a couple of these are about items that I know you addressed, but it probably wouldn't hurt to go over them again. So the first question is, isn't all data in the cloud automatically backed up by Microsoft?
Great question, and this is always a good point to elaborate. The answer is no. Microsoft just retains one copy of your data. That's the live version that you see when you log in, but that's it. if that data again is deleted, corrupted, hacked, lost, there's no other backup that exists. So this is why it's critical to understand that Microsoft is responsible for service availability. They're going to keep your inbox accessible, but the data itself in the inbox, that's going to be your responsibility to back up, protect, and recover.
All right, the next question we have is, how does an administrator ensure that all of their users are being backed up? Is there any type of centralized management console?
By default with Office 365, not really. So Office 365, if you want to go and take a look at the retention policies, they're in very different locations for SharePoint, for OneDrive. Honestly, whenever I have to go look at them, I have to do like an online search to even figure out what interface I go to. It's really distributed, not centralized, hard to use. So that's why we recommend using a tool like Altaro. You saw that nice web interface, centrally managed, but more importantly, you have features that allow you to automatically protect new users in the environment. So if you are a large distributed organization, you might have new users joining every single day. You don't want to have that handoff process every day between the onboarding IT person and the backup person, reminding them to keep protecting these people. So centralized backup, if you're a two-person organization, may not be necessary, but certainly as you become a smaller to larger organization, it's going to be critical to have that centralized management dashboard.
All right, we have a couple more questions. The next one is, where is Altaro backup data stored? Do I need my own Azure account?
No, one of the best things about this solution from Altaro is that they essentially have their own cloud storage service. This actually does run in Microsoft Azure, so it's always protected, highly available, distributed. It uses geographic redundancy, although the main data center that they're using is based in the Netherlands. But fundamentally, no. Part of the subscription for using this Altaro Office 365 backup is the subscription fee includes the cost of transmitting the data. It includes the cost of storing it, maintaining it, protecting it, replicating it. So that's really one of the reasons why a lot of organizations like this solution. You pay that per user price, and that covers everything, including all of the storage costs, making it highly available and recoverable from anywhere.
All right, we only have time for one more question, and that one is, how often does Altaro back up my files, and can I configure this?
Sure. Altaro automatically backs up your files 4 times a day. So this is approximately every 6 hours, although it is somewhat staggered to ensure that the entire data center or network isn't overwhelmed by taking every backup simultaneously. Unfortunately, this is not configurable at this time. It is a standard policy which is set globally across all the Altaro instances. But we found that by doing it 4 times a day, it provides that perfect balance between, not overloading the networks, not taking too much backups, which can cause disruption, yet still offering a low recovery point objective and recovery time so that you can get services back on while minimizing the total amount of data loss. So again, the quick answer is automatically 4 times every day.
Well, that is all the time that we have, and I want to thank both you, Simon, for joining us and Altaro for sponsoring today's focus session. And thanks to everyone for attending. Our next session will begin very shortly. The link to join that session is provided in your email confirmation, and it's also available at Twitter at the hashtag Office365Con. That's the hashtag Office365Con. You may now disconnect from this session, and we hope to see you again very shortly. Thank you.
Thank you.